Hey guys, it's Mad Morta, and I thought I'd share some tips with painting and customizing consoles. And in particular, give some tips about the Game Boy, because someone asked about DMG cases. Um, so first of all, in order to open a handheld Nintendo console like Game Boy Advance SP, Game Boy Color, Game Boy, you're going to need a little tiny tri-wing screwdriver, and it opens up these screws. If you see in the middle top of the screen, looks like a little Y shape. Um, I'm gonna need that to open it. Um, you could use a case off of a regular Game Boy, but I would recommend getting a new one off of eBay. This was like $7 including shipping. I live in the US. And it's got the back plate, a brand new face plate. Believe it has buttons, but I'm not sure. I don't have it open. And the good thing about this is it's got all kinds of different colors. And my worry is when you have a light color with a dark color on it, that has a tendency to show through if you're painting a light color over it. So getting something that's, black with blue is better than, white with black. Is that black? Blue. Um, so, some tips on painting stuff. This is what I normally use. This is Rust-Oleum American Accents. That also bonds to plastic, and it has to say it bonds to plastic. If it doesn't, it won't work. I like gloss, but for clear coat, I'll use semi-gloss. It kind of just depends on the color. If I'm doing white, I don't need it to be glossy, so I'll use semi-gloss. Semi-gloss is easier to work with, but gloss is prettier. And an example of that would be, this is gloss. It's pretty and it's smooth and soft. This is also pretty smooth and soft, but it's got kind of a different, it's not as shiny. It's also not quite as soft, but it's pretty close. So that's what I use. Just be really careful when you're putting it on. If you put too much on or too little, it'll look odd. Especially if you put too much, it's better to put too little than too much. Don't do it if it's hot out, don't do it in direct sunlight, or if it's windy or cold or humid. It's got to be a nice day, reasonable temperature, not too windy, not too sunny. Do it outdoors. Pretty much it. It says on the back of the can to hold it 10 to 16 inches away from whatever you're spraying, which in general is good, but I found that with gloss, if you want it to be as good as it can be, you have to spray a lot closer than that. But it's a really fine line, because if you put just a teensy bit too much, you get these crackly effects, and those are ugly. So then you have to sand it, and it's a whole big thing. For doing designs, one option that you have is Posca pens. That's what I used to do this. This was a little test thing I was doing. I did this design on a Wii. As you can see, there's a little crack there on the white. It's actually on the red underneath the white, but what Posca pens are is they're pens, and they're kind of like Sharpies, and they draw just like Sharpies, but they've got a ball inside of them, just like the spray paint. And you can write with them just like normal. Write your name or draw something, whatever. You kind of have to be good at freehanding, but once you get the hang of them, they're pretty fun. You can do all sorts of cool things. But I'm not very good at freehanding, so I don't use them as often as I thought I would. Yeah, so those are cool. These are fine size, but they're like regular size Sharpies. So fine is like a regular Sharpie. Extra fine is what I just showed you, and that's a little bit thinner than a regular Sharpie. And I think ultra fine is like a fine Sharpie. So to kind of give you a reference. I did do this with the fine ones, but I've since ordered extra fine because it's hard to do anything with a Sharpie if you're doing it small or detailed. So that's just me. If you want to do a fade with spray paint, like I did with this, where the orange is on one side and the red's on another side, and it kind of, blends together. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but it kind of, the red goes to about here, all the way around. I'd recommend that you disassemble it and everything. You paint the different colors, the different sides orange or whatever color, the lighter of the two, and then you put them together and you make sure that the two sides match, because sometimes you'll put a little bit more orange on one side than another and it'll look just a little bit odd. So, be sure that you get it even on both sides. Then once that base color is really, really, really dry and you can touch it and handle it, just be gentle because it doesn't have clear coat yet. You put it all together and you hold on to the other end and you're going to spray like from far back, like extra far back. And for this, what I did is I wanted the bottom to be red, so I sprayed the bottom red like normal at my normal distance, but then to get on top I got really far back and sprayed at a low angle like this, not quite that far away or quite that low of an angle, but I was kind of aiming for here. I was doing like stripes of paint there and it was like misting up to here. So aim low and you'll get a pretty cool thing. I didn't actually practice for this before doing it, but it came out just fine. So as long as you're careful, it should come out just okay. But a different option that you have for doing designs is stencils. And I went over this once before, but I'll go over it again real quick because it's not hard. This is label making paper, and it's basically a sticker on one side. It peels, and your design or download or whatever a design, I put it in black and white. And then, for example, for Bowser, I painted the circle red. I took the circle out of the thing, painted it all solid red, let it dry completely. Then I cut out the design that I wanted, which in this case was Bowser, and I stuck the Bowser sticker on over the red, just the sticker of his face. Then I painted the whole thing black, and with a little needle, like a sewing needle, I peeled it up just a little bit and slowly peeled it off. If you go fast, you'll get little fuzzies, and those will be hard to get off and it'll look weird, but if you go really slow, you should get it off just fine. But make sure that you put clear tape over this before you put it on there. So you print out the design and you put clear like packing tape over the design before you cut it out. I don't think I said that, but you have to do that because you don't want the paint to leak through it, and you have to peel it up as fast as basically as soon as you've put the black on. You want to peel up the sticker, because if you don't, it could bleed through the paper like from the outside in, and you'll get like a wavy line, or worse, you might get like a lip or an edge right where the black meets the red, and there's no edge here because I peeled it up right away. But if you don't want it to dry with the sticker on it, so peel it up fast as you can. Just be really careful. Let's see. For texture, I use Bondo glazing and spot putty. That's what I did this with. It's kind of an orangey color, and you just put it on, and it's like toothpaste, and you can use a toothpick, and in a couple of minutes it dries. So I just use a toothpick to make little brick things, and I want to do I want to do more with that, but I haven't yet. I was kind of trying to see how sturdy this was, because as a general rule, this stuff is pretty soft, so it's not good for a handheld, but I haven't found a good alternative to it yet, so kind of working on that. But let's see. For this right here, I 3D printed this, and you can do that too. I just printed them out and sanded them, painted them, and then used epoxy to stick them on. For buttons, I like to, in general, I have a general rule where I try not to paint controllers. I have a couple times, but I'm not. One of them came out actually really cool, and I wish I'd had a video of that one because it was pretty awesome. But for the most part, I don't like doing it. If you paint the buttons, then they stick a little bit to the rest of it. So like if you paint, it doesn't do it on here, but for example, if you paint the A button and you also paint this, they have a slight tendency to stick together or to not be quite as responsive. So when I do paint buttons, I tend to use a higher quality paint. In this case, for the clear coat and for the paint for these green buttons, I used Testors brand, which is for like model cars. You can find it at Hobby Lobby. Oh, that's what I was going to say. You can find this at Walmart. Krylon Fusion, they have at Ace Hardware. And Testors, you can find at Hobby Lobby or RC hobby stores. They carry it. And it tends to be a little bit sturdier because it's made for things that crash and get stepped on and run into walls. So it feels the same, but it's a bit higher quality, but it is really expensive. So it's like $6 or $7 for a teensy little can, as opposed to, I'm not exaggerating, they're really little. They're like this big. Let's see. So if you're going to paint something, you're going to need paint and you're going to need clear coat. There's something else called primer, which is like another paint that goes underneath the paint, and it helps the paint stick to whatever you're painting. For example, if you're going to paint this, if I were going to do this one, I might use primer, not because I need it to stick, but because I don't want Nintendo Game Boy to stand out after I paint it. I don't want to have to put extra coats on to kind of hide that. If I was painting it white, for example, I wouldn't want to do that. But, you know, for this and pretty much everything except the GameCube Portable, I don't use primer. Actually, I did use primer on this, but that's because it was one of the colors. Not to help it stick or anything. I could just only find so many colors of gray, and one of them was primer, so that's why that's on there. But I've got like 3 different colors of gray, so... but you don't need that. If you're painting a game console, unless it's something weird like, I don't know what, maybe a PlayStation 3 might be weird because, you know, they're kind of glossy. Maybe not. I don't know. I haven't painted one. But I know for sure Wii's, GameCubes, pretty much all Game Boys do not need primer if you're going to paint it, as long as you're using this. I can't 100% guarantee that you don't need it for Krylon Fusion, but I'm really, really certain that you don't. It's really for kind of emergency stuff, like it's just not sticking. And if you do mess up the paint, the cool thing is you can just get some sandpaper, sand it down. For example, with this, when this happened, I could have sanded it down to get rid of those and then repainted, and I normally would have, but because it's a fade and it happened when I put the clear coat on, I would have had to sand it down. I would have had to remove this and repaint the orange and then repaint the red and then redo the clear coat. I have to put this on and redo the clear coat. So it would have been basically starting completely over on this side of it. So it wasn't worth it in this case to do that. But if it happens on the circle or a button, or if it's not a fade, if it's not something that's 2 colors, go for it. But since I had this glued on and I would have to redo the red, it would have looked weird if I redid the red on one side but not the other because it's even. Probably wouldn't have been even anymore, so it's kind of just overall not, it would have been starting over for that tiny thing and I didn't want to do it. So, and I'm generally pretty anal about it, but I'm going to sell that one. I don't need a Game Boy Color, so, you know, Game Boy players all the way, but That's, I believe, the majority of what I wanted to say, but let me know if you guys have any questions and I'd be happy to answer them.